Time now for Eye on Africa. Coming up in the programme, hope in the fight against the Ebola outbreak in the DRC as a new vaccine is rolled out to thousands of people at risk in the country's east. We report from Tunisia and trouble in the medical sector there amid walkouts and complaints of a brain drain overseas. We have a special report coming up too from Benghazi. Our reporters taking the temperature in the Libyan city's artistic community after years of violence and instability. To the Democratic Republic of Congo, first of all, where a second vaccine is being rolled out to fight the 15-month-old Ebola outbreak. It's produced by a Belgian subsidiary of pharma giant Johnson & Johnson. Medics broadening the fight against an outbreak which has claimed over 2,000 lives. Clement Bodereau has details.
This clinic outside Goma is among the first to give its patients the new vaccine against Ebola. Produced by Johnson & Johnson, it's never been tested in a real-world setting before.
I'm happy I got vaccinated today.
I have many friends who've died of Ebola. More and more people are dying, so I have to protect myself.
The new vaccine will be rolled out alongside another manufactured by Merck, which has already been given to 250,000 people in the eastern DRC. Unlike Merck's, which is given to people who've come into contact with an Ebola patient, J&J's vaccine will be available to those who've not yet been exposed to the virus. It will be administered to some 50,000 people in the city of Goma on the border with Rwanda, where there's currently no active transmission of the disease.
Most people are eligible for this vaccination. They have to be at least 1 year old and not have a chronic illness.
The current Ebola outbreak in the eastern DRC is now the second largest in history. Over 3,200 people have been infected since it began in August 2018, and more than 2,150 have died. Efforts to contain the crisis have been hampered by armed conflict as well as mistrust among locals. Authorities, however, say the number of reported new infections has fallen steeply in recent months. DRC's President Félix Tshisekedi says he hopes the epidemic will be eradicated by the end of the year.
Tunisia next, the moderate Islamist Ennahda party has named Habib Gemli as its choice for Prime Minister. That after coming first in last month's parliamentary election. 60-year-old Gemli, who served as junior agriculture minister in a previous Ennahda-led government, now has 2 months to try to form a coalition. Well, Tunisia has also been the scene of weeks of protests from doctors who've been threatening to resign en masse over poor conditions. That with medical students complaining of a crisis in the healthcare sector as workers leave for better jobs overseas. This from our correspondents Lilia Blaise, Fadil Al-Isri and Hamdi Tlili.
Young medical students are refusing to be silenced. After a sector-wide strike on the 4th of November, they're staging another walkout next week, citing poor working conditions. One of them, Waji, was handed a 4-month suspension for criticizing the university administration in a Facebook post.
The air conditioning in the library was off, although all the other air conditioners of the administration were on and working. I spoke about that and about the problems with the internet connection. So things that are very trivial.
Waji's suspension was the final straw, compounding dissatisfaction and leaving many young doctors up in arms.
We had agreements with the administration, with the ministry, but these clear agreements were never implemented on the ground.
It's not only at university where medics are angry. Recently, a dozen emergency doctors in Benghazi threatened to resign en masse after months of working understaffed. As a result, more people were hired, and the doctors, including Alia, finally got the support that they needed.
We defended our rights by threatening this letter of resignation, and we won this time. But I hope that the public health situation in Tunisia improves. Otherwise, I'm not sure I will stay.
Despite this victory, Alia is considering leaving anyway. Other problems have been piling up: low salaries, crumbling infrastructure, and a lack of materials.
Doctors are feeling insecure. They feel their working conditions don't ensure a minimum peace of mind.
450 doctors have left the country this year alone, a trend that's increasing year on year.
Time now for the 5th episode of our special series on war-torn Libya. Today we head to Benghazi, the eastern city that rose up against the Gaddafi government back in 2011. Well, it witnessed years of violence after his fall as rival factions fought for influence. General Khalifa Haftar's forces faced down Islamist fighters in the region before taking the fight to the UN-backed government in Tripoli. Our reporters Wissam Sharaf and Eric de la Varenne went to meet Benghazi's artists. Some openly support the general's offensive, others are worried about the future.
2 years after the end of the war, parts of Benghazi enjoy a sense of normality. Shops and malls have had a facelift. They're trading again under the protection of the man seen as the hero of East Libya, General Haftar. Tanarut is the only cultural center in the city, open since 2015. The director welcomes young artists, helping them find a new voice. This area is being renovated. The whole city faces a mammoth challenge of reconstruction, and Tanarut's director believes that his center has a role to play in that.
The art and culture are going in the same way with the reconstruction in Benghazi. We still need the art and culture to send a message for the Libyan people that we have to stay united, we have to stay calm, we have to look out for each other.
Music, painting, graphic art or literature, this cultural rebirth remains fragile. As civil war tears apart entire regions of the country again, Benghazi's community of artists is looking for its place in society.
Yes, it's a really hard time to work in a situation like this, especially in war in Tripoli, because sometimes people wondering what's the rule of art now. I mean, people are fighting, guns everywhere. Why we should listen to a song or watch some painting or listen to a boat.
Mansour Hussein does not worry about these issues. A young rap artist, he calls himself Unknown. His songs are about Libyan youth, a lost generation scarred by war, unemployed and miserable. But for some, they might be light at the end of the tunnel. This 24-year-old believes that the only hope for Libya is to see General Haftar impose order throughout the country.
We've been through hard times. Before 2014, under Daesh, if you sang, you could get your throat slit or get shot. Now the situation's better. We can express ourselves freely and we feel secure again.
Like the artists, the residents of Benghazi are divided. Should weapons do all the talking, or is there a way to bring out a political process? In the capital Tripoli, hundreds have been killed in the last 6 months. But General Haftar's National Army of Libya is far from being able to unite the country under its own flag.
Moving on to South Africa next, Post Office worker Luyanda Botha has been given 3 life sentences after admitting to the rape and murder of a 19-year-old student. Killings sparked mass protests over violence against women in the country. There were cheers in the courtroom on Friday as the sentence was handed down. Last year, some 2,700 women were murdered by men in South Africa, 5 times the global average. South African cartoonist Zapiro, meanwhile, has been awarded one of France's highest honours. The 61-year-old, real name Jonathan Shapiro, was handed the Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres. His work, a regular feature in the nation's press, has been named one of the 50 most influential people on the continent by the magazine Jeune Afrique. Our correspondents Caroline Dumais and Stefan Castens went to meet him in his Cape Town studio.
Zapiro is proud of his old cartoons and keeps hold of everything in his studio. He wasn't even 30 when this poster made him famous.
It really was the beginning of everything for me, because it was actually a cartoon that was trying to show the most exciting parts of being involved in the movement, the anti-apartheid movement in the 80s. The police, you'll see, and the security police are drawn as pigs. They came looking for me, and the first question they asked me was, "Why do you draw us as pigs?" I said, "I draw what I see." And then they put me into solitary confinement.
He went on to publish 28 books, caricaturing all of South Africa's political leaders, Nelson Mandela being his favorite.
It just suddenly came to me to use his face as the sun, the first new dawn. And I did. I mean, I used him as the sunrise here on the 27th of April, and later I used the image again.
The artist had a good relationship with Mandela, but subsequent presidents have been less appreciative of his humor. Jacob Zuma hates being portrayed with a shower over his head.
He was charged with rape. They asked him what he did after so-called consensual sex with somebody HIV positive. He said he had a shower. Why? To lessen his chance of infection. So immediately I thought, I will put a shower in his head. It became bigger than I could possibly imagine.
Despite multiple cases of legal action, Zapiro has never been put off. He continues to call out abuse in post-apartheid society.
You know, sometimes people even ask me if I could work in another country. I actually have done that. Cartoonists are more transportable than people imagine.
From sport to economics, Zapiro is never short of ideas. For South Africans, he's one of the most influential people in the country.
And finally, Egypt may be famous for its pyramids, but Sudan has twice as many of them, 255 to be precise. And thanks to an injection of cash from Germany and Qatar, visiting them just got easier. For the first time, tourists will be able to enter the ancient structures and the tombs beneath them. That amid improvements that include a new visitor centre at the Meroe site, north of the capital, Khartoum. That's it for Eye on Africa. Do stay with us here on France 24.